Well, thanks everyone for clicking on this video. Bill Mack here with another edition of Pro Wrestling Unleashed. Glad you could join me for this video. Glad you clicked on it. This is for the results for September 21st, 2017 of what is now being branded, I guess, as Impact Wrestling yet once again, as we saw that the Anthem is pulling away from the GFW name. Jeff Jarrett may be returning, but I think they're trying to pull away from the GFW name. They're not going back to TNA because they associate TNA with Orlando. When I saw today earlier on, this is just a tidbit of information. Anthem is looking to bring the headquarters from Nashville to Toronto, so it may Impact Wrestling may become a Toronto-based show, which it becomes a Canadian show, not a U.S. produced show, which I kind of figured that would happen. But needless to say, that's what they're trying to rebrand it to. We will know more after November the 5th, which will be, of course, Bound for Glory. But this is 1 week. This show here is the go home show. As of course, next week we will have Victory Road. And so glad you could join it, and I will give you the results of what happened, and I thought it was a pretty good show. I thought there was a lot of good storyline going on here. So we see Johnny Impact. He's around in the back. He's trying to look for Eli Drake. As we know, Johnny Impact's their #1 contender for the Global Championship held by Eli Drake. KM tells him basically that he's not there. He's in Mexico, and then he challenges Johnny Impact in the ring for a chance to take his #1 contender spot. Of course, Johnny Impact says he will do that. They have a matchup, which is it's a decent match, not very long. KM basically ends up getting beat. We see Johnny Impact hit what I think is called the Impact elbow off the top rope, which is a pretty wicked looking elbow the way it comes off. But he hits that and he gets the win, so he retains his spot. Up next, we have Ava Story taking on Talia Valkyrie. This was a squash match, which poor Ava Story is just being I guess, Barry Horowitz, Jumpin' Joey Maggs of the Knockouts division. But they need to kind of, I think in this matchup, excuse me, in their Knockouts division, they've only highlighting 2 or 3, but I think they need to kind of build these other Knockouts lesser known up too, just to have a solid from top to bottom, because you don't want to have just 2 or 3 that's really good and the rest of them are not so good to kind of be the jobbers. But this was a short match. We see Talia Valkyrie ends up hitting the face buster on Ava for the win. She comes in because Ava puts up little to no offense whatsoever. It's a squash match for Talia since she's come in. So we see Talia grab the mic, says she's here for the knockout title. And then we see Rosemary come out. And then when all the dust settles and everything is down, we see now that there are 6 women going at it in the ring. We got Gail Kim, Rosemary, and Allie. On one side, we got Sienna, Talia Valkyrie, and we have Tara and Terrell. On the other side, of course, Gail Kim and the faces all stand in the ring while the heels are basically outside the ring. Very upset at what's going on. We see OVE. Remember last week they said they weren't leaving Mexico till they got a rematch because they felt it was unfair because there was 2 other teams that they were failed to be let known that were participating in that tag match. So it wasn't a 1-on-1 tag team match. It was basically a fatal 4-way. So they end up finding out the clubhouse where LAX are hanging out at. They're partying and everything else. Conan's talking to him on the phone. He's talking to Homicide on the phone, and they basically want to challenge LAX to a rematch at Victory Road for the titles. Of course, LAX accepts it. So we have a match. One of the matches made known for Victory Road next week, which will be OVE and a rematch against LAX. Up next, we had a match that formed as a tag team matchup last week of an odd tag team. We had the debut of Pagano Jr. From Mexico. He came in and helped Phantasma attacked EC3 after their grand championship match, which Hector Guerrero voted for EC3 to win the match, and it upset Phantasma. Pagano Jr. went and attacked EC3. Eddie Edwards comes in. He makes the save, so this brings us to this week. Eddie Edwards and the grand champion EC3 taking on Pagano Jr. and taking on Phantasma. I thought this was a good match. Phantasma and Pagano Jr. pretty much controlled most of the early on matchup, or most of the matchup, basically working on EC3. We see Eddie Edwards come in. Eddie ends up hitting the Blue Thunder Bomb on the Phantasma, but the referee gets distracted by EC3 on the outside with Pagano Jr. He doesn't get the count. We see Tejano, which was one of the guys that was last week. We saw in the Triple A Mania match against Johnny Impact, and he ends up hitting a power bomb on Eddie. The referee doesn't see, which allows Phantasma to get the pin and get the win for them. So then all three of them begin to gang up on EC3 and Eddie Edwards. This prompts Cowboy James Storm to come out. He helps to clear the ring. We see him shake hands with Eddie Edwards, but he stares EC3 in eye to eye because remember what happened. He got that concussion in his strap match against EC3 at Slammiversary, so he still hadn't forgot that yet. So then he goes out and celebrates in the crowd as he leaves. Excuse me. So then we are made known that we see P.D. Williams talking about Trevor Lee, and Jeremy Borash and Josh Matthews let us know that at Victory Road that P.D. Williams will be taking on Trevor Lee, the Carolina Caveman, for the X Division Championship. So that'll look to be a good match. Just watch out because Caleb Conley may have something to say about it. Of course, Sanjay Dutt may come out there to even the odds up. It remains to be seen. But that, yet again, is another matchup we're looking forward to seeing next week at Victory Road. Up next, we have Congo Kong taking on Mabali Shira. And remember, the last few weeks, they've kind of been butting heads. And I told you folks in my videos that I thought that they were probably going to end up basically having a feud. Well, they had a good match tonight. Shira tried. It wasn't that big of wasn't that matchup. Shira did try to put some offense, but when you've got a man the size of Congo Kong, the man seems indestructible. He ends up, in the ending of the match, he ends up where Shira basically gets and lands in the corner. We see Congo Kong get that cannonball splash. Shira rolls to the middle of the ring. Congo Kong gets on top rope, hits that big splash of his. 1, 2, 3. Congo Kong gets the win over Shira. So not that great of a match, but it was what it was. We see a matchup up next. Tejano Jr. challenges Johnny Impact after Johnny Impact's in the back. Still looking for Eli Drake, even though Eli is not even there. But we see Tejano Jr. say, "Look, I'll challenge you for your number one spot." So Johnny accepts. So yes, folks, yet again, Johnny Impact wrestles 2 matches on the show. Excuse me. Now this matchup to me was a really good matchup, a lot better. I saw Tejano was really good. He fought really good in this matchup. He actually carried a lot of this matchup against Johnny Impact. It was a good matchup, better than the one he had in early on against KM. But Tejano Jr. really carried that matchup against Johnny Impact. And then he gave him all that he could handle, but when the end comes down to it, Johnny Impact ends up hitting the Starship Pain in the corner and getting the win over Tejano. So really good matchup. Good showing for both guys. We see Impact once again retaining his number one contender spot. And then we come back from commercial, and Hot Mess Laura Van Ness is in the audience now. She's not wearing her wedding dress, which thank God she's not. But she still has her makeup smeared all over her mouth. and face, but she does actually have a nice looking dress on. And Josh is trying to say that she's in the crowd trying to find a husband, since we know what happened last week when Grado basically dumped her. And we see Grado and Joseph Park that they were talking about. He's signed, since he's signing his sports entertainment company, or sports management company, excuse me, that he's been making some pretty good money. Thought, I think, in Cleveland maybe, and that he had some stuff lined up for him. So congrats to Grado, as long as he's still working and can do what he can. Hey, that's good for him. So we see when we come after we leave Laura Maness and the Joseph Park thing, we see the heels, the women knockouts. We see Taryn Terrell, we see Talia Valkyrie, and we see Sienna all coming in and complaining to Karen about what happened out there. Karen said they want to challenge Allie and Gail Kim and Rosemary to a 6-woman tag match at Victory Road. Karen says, "Yeah, I'd love to see you get your butts kicked." So, so we see that's another matchup lined up for Victory Road. So she agrees, so they end up leaving, which brings us to the main event of the night. They're in Mexico, AAA. It's Eli Drake taking on Bronte, is his name. Excuse me. Sorry about a cough. Bronte. Now, it was a decent match. It wasn't really nothing spectacular. There was no spectacular moves, not a lot of fast pace. We had basically what it was set up to be: Eli's power versus Bronte's speed. And Bronte tried some of his moves, and Eli's just too powerful for him. And he got maybe a hurricane run on him at a time or two. But other than that, it was just basically a flat squash match for Eli Drake. I mean, I'm sure Bronte can wrestle, and he's up and comer in AAA, but he was no match for Eli tonight. Eli ended up hitting the gravy train for the win, poses in the corner as champion, and that is your show, folks. So hopefully I will have a prediction show out for Victory Road, and later in the week, closer as the pay-per-view gets, get some of these matches that are finalized when they are finalized. So I hope you folks enjoyed the video. If you do, give me a thumbs up, like this video, share this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I appreciate it to everyone. So until next time, this is Bill Mack, Pro Wrestling Unleashed, saying take it easy.